difficult project all in. I mean, we never considered ourselves as industrial artists. That's the thing, when you're talking about this album, you're talking about an entity. But it's two different people. It was important to us.
How did it come about that you were then together for the bridge?
Well, the original idea, when we were approached about it, was that we would do a side each.
Right.
So I would have my side of the album and he would have his side of the album. I didn't like the idea. I thought, it's like, it's too confusing. You know, two different artists doing two different things. What's the impetus to buy an album like that?
Yeah.
I don't know. If I would buy something that had an artist on it that I wasn't interested in, you know.
Yeah.
Which sounds a bit kind of conceited in a way, but that's just the way I was thinking at the time. But anyway, Robert and I discussed it, and we decided definitely we should do it together. And sort of try and come up with something that would be a merging of the two talents or whatever.
Yeah. But it wasn't, therefore the idea wasn't to go ahead and be Leer Rental following through after that.
It was only a one-off project.
Yeah. Well, was there anything on the bridge that was previously demoed, or did everything all come up in the 2 weeks?
No, everything was written as we recorded.
Yeah.
We wrote a song and then recorded it.
And did you write it song-wise? I mean, you know how you've got the one side ambient, one side songs.
Mm.
Did you do songs first?
Yeah, songs first.
Right.
And we set it out like a week for each.
Yeah.
So the first week we tried to write songs.
Yeah.
And then when that was it, 5 songs in that 1 week. Actually we wrote about 6, but we only used 5.
Yeah.
And then on the next week we started on the ambient stuff. But we hadn't finished a lot of the song stuff. So I think they gave us a couple of extra days. So it was more than 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks and a couple of days,
Right.
a weekend or something like that. And we finished off songs and did the mixing and all that.
Quite a feat.
Yeah.
So is everything based on improvisations and the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just messed about until we got stuff. I mean, it was a proper writing process, but it was fast. It had to be done fast.
Yeah, I find it pretty amazing, actually. That you've got that out of 2 weeks.
It is amazing, yeah. I mean, a couple of the songs that are not songs in the normal sense of the word anyway. I mean, at least 3 of the songs on the first side are just constructions where we just messed about and improvised and built up backing tracks, and then I thought of something to sing over it, and he thought of something to sing over it.
Yeah.
And that became a song. But the 2 main songs, like Monochrome Days and the one Bob sings, Daybreaks, Night Heals, they were written as songs in a normal sort of method. And we both jumped back and forward with the lyrics. He threw a couple of lyrics in, and I put most of the lyrics in. You know. But all I remember was the gear got set up. I think Chris came and set the gear up with whoever it was that brought the gear. Because I came late, I was in Robert's place. So when I came, the gear was already there, already set up. But I knew how to operate it. I think we had a bit of trouble with one of it was like a weird kind of 8-track machine. It was an Atari studio type machine. And it was in different sections, so it was kind of different from what I was used to. But I mean, we were off and running the first day, recording right away.
Yeah, you were pulling sort of tapes from one machine to another and that kind of...
Oh, you mean for the loop stuff?
Yeah.
It was different. That was 2 separate machines. We had 2 stereo machines. Rather than normally you would just have 1 stereo machine to mix down onto. But because we wanted to do the loop thing, we had two machines to put the tapes between to do the loops. So one you would start on one tape, pull the tape across onto the next machine, put it on the spool, and then electronically loop it back into the other machine. So you would record on one machine, play back on the next, re-record on that machine, play back on the next. And depending on how far apart the machines were was how far the loop would go.
Mm-hmm.
So we would just let that go and build until there was a melange or a mush of sound, and then start to work on top of that.
Right. So how was it not feeding back?
Well, we had to keep twiddling the knobs and pulling it back and putting it up again and pulling it back so it didn't overload. We got a sort of perfect volume for a sort of long period where we could just leave it. But over a certain period it starts to overload. So you would start to hear it overloading and we pull it back down again. It's quite a job. Between Robert and I, we'd have to work between us. He spent a lot of time touching the tape, going and hitting the tape so that it didn't spool up, because you would start to see the tape falling down. So he would have to push the tape so it would re-spool up, and all that kind of business. So there'd be him doing that and me playing something over here, or singing into the microphone or whatever, and then him coming back and doing a bit of messing about and fiddling with his chorus machine. And it just worked like that. Yeah. I don't think he was comfortable anywhere making. I think he was only comfortable when he was on his own in a house recording just by himself. Like I mean, I'm more comfortable that way as well.
Yeah.
But I think as soon as the pressure came, he couldn't take the pressure. As soon as it was like, well, we've got to get this done. You know, we're writing a song today. That was basically it. We'd get up in the morning and write a song. We've got to get a song.
Right.
And so how do we do it? We sit down and I'd bash a bit on the guitar and come up with something. Then he'd bobble a bit on the bass and something would start to shape. But what would happen is that he would bugger off into the kitchen and I'd just be left on my own doing it.
Right.
So I would just write a song. And then he would complain because I'd written the song.
Right.
And he had nothing to do with it. As if I was consciously pushing him out, which I wasn't. So that was frustrating for me.
Yeah.
We never really met them all that much.
Yeah.
The other three, we met Genesis constantly. During that time, I mean, we got to know Genesis pretty well because we would meet him uptown. Robert and I were going uptown all the time, looking in music shops and what have you. We spent a lot of time just messing about, and we'd always meet him and go for a coffee with him. So we would find out what was going on from him.
Yeah.
Then we would go over to Beck Road where he was living at the time and have meetings with him. I think we had about 3 meetings with the whole band. And in every meeting, Sleazy never said a word to either of us in all the meetings. Chris talked a bit about technical stuff. Cozy talked about label stuff. And that was it. I know they had their own kind of concept of what they were doing with us. You know, the whole thing that they wanted to restrict us in some way to see if we would come up with something brilliant, but being restricted, which was a bit cheeky of them. But it didn't bother me because that's the way I was working anyway. So I'm quite happy to continue working like that. We were a sort of project for them. But of course to us it was different. To us it was a project for us as well, but it was like it was important to us.
Yeah.
We needed to get something out, a record. But you know, that's fair enough, that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Even when we did the
signing
thing, where they took we up and Sleazy was photographing us all and it was all played up like we were really signing and they wanted us to sign in blood and all this fucking bollocks. I thought, well, yeah, it's just a bit of fun really. Let's just have a bit of fun with it. It pushes you also to use your instrument more.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, most people can't figure out how they manage to make an album with just one synthesizer. Well, in the case of Bob and I, two synthesizers, the same synthesizers. Whereas most people would be like multi-tracking. You'd use one synthesizer, then they'd have another synthesizer. We just had one. And we managed to get all the different sounds we wanted out of this one synth.
Yeah.
And I've always been pretty good at that. Making the most of what I've got.
Yeah. It's a DIY ethic.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Again, people talk about the DIY ethic and stuff, and you think about when I went major and all that I kind of belied all that. I didn't. I still was DIY, even though I was on a major label. People don't realise, like for instance, on scale of 10, everything was programmed on the Fairlight and mixed and balanced and all that before I even took it into the studio.
Yeah.
So when I went into the studio, my producer, Paul, just had to transfer everything onto the multi-track. And then I did the vocals. And if we wanted to bring other musicians in, we bring other musicians in. But the heart of that album was all recorded before it even got to the studio.
Yeah.
It's an expensive DIY, but it's still DIY. And I'm still doing it now. I'm still working as a DIY artist. But people associate DIY with a sound.
Yeah.
And I never did. To me, DIY just meant you were doing it yourself. And I wanted to prove that you could make high quality records anywhere, you know, as long as you knew how to use that equipment.
And try to be.
That's what gets on my goat when people talk about selling out and stuff. You know, going to the majors and selling out and all this fucking nonsense. It's ridiculous. Everybody was doing it. And even the radicals all went pop.
Yeah.
Including me.
Yeah.
That was a strange one, actually, how quickly that happened. Well, you see, when I started doing the pop stuff, I took it as being just another thing to explore, another musical area to explore, somewhere to take what I'd been doing and bring it into that. I never saw it as being. I didn't want to be Sting, for instance. You know, I didn't want to just have loads of hits and then just be a pop star for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That was no interest to me at all. I wanted to do it for a while. In a way, it was kind of like, how could you really do that anyway, if you think about it? But I just wanted to do it for a couple of years and then get the fuck out and go back and do something decent again. Something more interesting. But the thing about it is that nobody really satisfied the promise of that whole period. There was something in that did really look like everything was going somewhere else. We were going to go into a new era of music, and it didn't happen.
No.
Because it's because the majors jumped in, and everything was commercialised.
Yeah.
And you couldn't control it. Once you get into that world, you can't control it. They control you. So you either have to get out or just go with it.